Past 7 on Sunday Breakfast, a Conservative MP, a member of the Health Select Committee, is calling for a government inquiry into the process of whistleblowing in the health and social care system. That's after hearing that a whistleblower who raised concerns about the Orchid View care home in Copthorne in West Sussex hasn't been able to find employment since. We'll hear from Charlotte Leslie, MP, in a moment, but first let's listen again to what Lisa Martin, the whistleblower, told Saturday Breakfast yesterday.
I do want to work back in care, but I can't get a job in the care industry again. But where I live is a very small village next to Copthorne. Everybody knows what went on. Yeah, it's just been an absolute nightmare for me. Obviously, I know morally that I did the right thing. Whether I would ever do that again, I probably wouldn't, because it's had a huge impact on my life.
Well, listening to that, Conservative MP for Bristol North West, Charlotte Leslie. Hello, Charlotte.
Morning.
What do you make of that? Quite a powerful statement at the end there from Lisa.
Absolutely, and what an indictment of our system and our care providers. And the trouble is, this is becoming a very familiar story. Whistleblowers across the NHS and the care system do the right thing, stand up, save lives in many cases. And then other future employers look at them, and instead of saying, thank goodness, here's someone who can prevent bad things happening, they look at them and say, here's a troublemaker.
Well, that's exactly it. Paul texted us earlier on, and I'll read his text out again. He said, thing is, a whistleblower has made themselves unmanageable. They've undermined the management and the whole complaints procedure. What they've done is morally right and should be applauded, but what manager is now going to put themselves under scrutiny by employing them? And that's true, isn't it? How are you going to change that mindset?
There are systems where people celebrate if someone says something's wrong. So the whole culture should be, if I was a manager and I was responsible for people and someone came to me and said something's wrong, I'd be very pleased. Now the whole point is whistleblowers become whistleblowers because the system is wrong, because no one's listening. So it's not them that's wrong, it's the system. And we have to find a way of getting to a culture where it's celebrated if someone goes to management and says, look, you need to know that this isn't right. If someone goes to higher levels, makes a complaint and says this isn't right, and they're stifled, that's then what makes them a whistleblower. And it's the fact they've been stifled when they first raised a concern that is the really bad thing.
But the way you put that, Charlotte, you're almost just talking about management tactics. You know, I think we could file paper clips better, so I'm going to go and tell the manager. But really, these people they're exposing corruption and even worse things, aren't they? And that's the difficulty.
Absolutely, that is the difficulty, but that is why whistleblowing is very, very important, and why an organisation that has nothing to fear will hire a whistleblower. An organisation that says, look, I want to know if things are going wrong, will hire a whistleblower. So what does that say, and I'd love to know who they are, about all those organisations that haven't employed whistleblowers? And that's what I think would be very interesting, to see where whistleblowers who have been proven right, I'm not talking about people who just make complaints, you know, people who've made complaints and are proven to have been correct in raising concerns about people not performing their duties. I'd like to know who the employers are, who they then apply to, and I'd like to know very much why they don't feel that it's right to take on someone who's going to reveal things when they're going wrong.
But at the same time, you can't force someone to give someone a job, can you?
No, you can't, but you have to turn around a culture. And if you force someone to give someone a job, the likelihood is the person who gets the job will probably have a rotten time in that job, and it won't solve the culture. One of the things I think we need to do is to turn the culture around and hold people to account. So you've got the sickening situation where you have people like Sir David Nicholson, who oversaw an absolute disaster in mid-staffs and an era of bullying and putting targets above patient safety in the NHS. He's got a very nice job, thank you very much, sitting there up in NHS England. But then at the same time, you've got people who do the right thing and don't have jobs.
Right,
that's the culture you need to turn around.
At the same time, he wasn't there all the time, was he? So we have to put that point. He's not here to defend himself, David Nicholson. And also, I just want to talk about the issue when it comes to whistleblowing. There's an attitude that's endemic, isn't there? And I can understand this. While, again, morally, we can all sit back and say, thank goodness these people exist. You know, by their very nature, they can cause a lot of trouble in an organisation, and you can understand why management would rather bury it.
I think good management that is really focused on quality of care and what it's delivering, will welcome it. And there are examples of how you can. It should never get to the point where it's called whistleblowing. And there are examples in car manufacturing where any single employee can raise their hand and stop the line. So if they see something going wrong, anyone in that manufacturing industry can say, "Hang on, not happy with this."
But that's not whistleblowing.
That's celebrated.
That's effective work practice, isn't it?
Exactly. But the point is, the fact that there are becoming so many whistleblowers in the care system and in the NHS means that we need nothing short of a cultural revolution in the management systems, because the fact there is whistleblowing means there's something desperately wrong.
Right. So hang on a minute. You're saying that that we've got to this point where people are whistleblowing in the health service because management down the line have refused to adopt or adapt their practices. And inevitably then it leads to the situation where people are losing their lives. So whistleblowing at the end of the process could be solved by effective management earlier on. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. And I think if you talk to most whistleblowers, they've been trying to raise their concerns through the normal channels for ages, and they resort to whistleblowing because no one's been listening.
Right. But how do we protect those whistleblowers? Should we pay them a fee? Should we pay them a flat fee for what they're doing? Because in effect they are risking their livelihoods.
I think they are risking their livelihoods. I think it's very tempting to sort of step in, and I think you'd have to look at ways to support them. But I'd go back again, it doesn't solve the problem. Compensation is usually given if something bad happens to you. These people have stood up and done the right thing. And in any system that was working well, they'd be rewarded. Yes, you can support them, but I think what many of these people want is justice. And they're fuming, quite rightly, and I'm fuming as well, that people who have been responsible and have been in positions of responsibility where bad things have happened are going on to very nice jobs. And people who are saving lives are losing their jobs, losing their livelihood and everything. That's why I think a whistleblowing inquiry or review into how we can ensure, to be honest, that whistleblowing isn't needed because, management systems iron out these things before it gets to whistleblowing. But how we can protect whistleblowers, I mean, my dad's a doctor, and it's been known since 10 years or more that if you raise concerns, you can be expected to not be in your job because somehow you'll be managed out.
You're a troublemaker, aren't you?
Exactly, but it's very difficult to monitor. So I think one of the things you could do, if someone's blown the whistle and has proven to be correct, I'd just like to know which jobs they're applying for and the employer's reasons for saying no. Because if an organisation, as I said before, is really focused, not just focused on all their literature and their pamphlets and all their guff they give out, but really focused on care, then they will welcome a whistleblower because it's a disruptive force, and management systems always use this word disruptive now in a good way, the disruptive force that will let people know when things are wrong. And an organisation that's focused on doing the right thing will welcome that. So the very fact organisations don't says an awful lot about them, and I want to know who they are.
That's employment going forward for whistleblowers. I guess finally, Charlotte, one last point here. Steve has texted in, and he says, I blew the whistle on local management to national management in a massive multinational. The investigation was a whitewash and a cover-up. The corruption continues. I just escaped the sack and feel deeply aggrieved. Criminal behaviour is being concealed, but I need my job. So what can I do? And that's the other side of this, isn't it? If it's not made easier for whistleblowers to come forward, you wonder just how many people are keeping their heads down and not alerting the authorities to what may be happening.
Absolutely. And since I've been working on some of what's been going on in the Department of Health, I've had so many people come to me. There's an organisation called Public Concern at Work. I don't have the URL on me, but Public Concern at Work is a good place to go if you're a whistleblower. If you're in the Department of Health or you're in the care system and you have information, go to them, but also, and I won't be able to deal with all of these because I'll probably get flooded out, do let me know.
Charlotte, Leslie, thank you very much indeed. What do you make of what Charlotte's had to say? You can text us 8...